This morning, Zohran Mamdani is officially the Democratic nominee for New York City mayor, and he's now facing new attacks from President Trump. The president is now threatening to arrest Mamdani if he blocks immigration arrests in New York City, something that Mamdani has promised to do. But there is a lot more questions about, as he is now continuing to campaign, that Mamdani is also facing continued and serious questions about his stance on Israel. CNN's Harry Anton is joining me now and is running the numbers on this, taking this and looking also more broadly, because it speaks to the broader views in Democratic politics specifically, also speak to what's going on with Mamdani and this race for mayor in New York City.
Yeah, absolutely true. I mean, look, Andrew Cuomo during the primary attacked Mamdani as being insufficiently pro-Israel. I'm not quite sure the former governor understood how much the politics have changed around this issue among Democrats. What are we talking about here? All right, who Democrats sympathize more with, Israelis or Palestinians? In 2017, the Democratic Party was a pro-Israeli party. Look at this. They sympathized with the Israelis by 13 points, more with the Israelis than the Palestinians. But look at this sea change. Now Democrats sympathize more with the Palestinians by 43 points. Oh, my God, that is a change in the margin of 56 points over the course of just 8 years. So all of a sudden, it's the pro-Palestinian position that actually reigns supreme in Democratic politics, not the Israeli position. And that is part of the reason why Mamdani was able to do so well in this primary, because those attacks over Israel, simply put, did not ring true for Democrats. They're now on the side of the Palestinians, not the Israelis.
I mean, this is a much bigger issue, specifically with Mamdani, though. I mean, an outspoken critic of Israel. He's facing continued criticism, though, for not being outspoken enough against anti-Semitism, that is for sure. But on this, talk about Democrats and how broadly how this really is shifting.
Yeah, so, you see this among Democrats overall, right? But we know that Mamdani's base was younger voters within the Democratic Party. And so I want to break it down
with younger Democrats.
Correct. So take a look here. Who age 18 to 49 Democrats sympathize more with, the Israelis or the Palestinians? Again, in 2017, younger Democrats sympathized more with the Israelis by 14 points. Look at this shift now. Palestinians, they sympathize more with the Palestinians by 57 points. That is an over 70-point shift in the margin in just a matter of 8 years. So the bottom line is, Mamdani's base within the Democratic Party and the base of the Democratic Party of younger voters, younger Democrats, have changed tremendously on this issue in 8 years' time. I rarely ever see shifts like this, Kate, in which you see one side of the equation leading by 14 points 8 years ago, and then all of a sudden the other side of the equation leading by 57 points. The bottom line is the politics around the Israelis and the Palestinians have shifted tremendously among Democrats, and they've shifted specifically tremendously among Democrats who are under the age of 50, younger Democrats who are Mamdani's base, and also the base of Democratic socialists like himself, like Bernie Sanders, like AOC. They have just shifted more so than I think that anyone could possibly have imagined, say, 8 years ago.
Yeah. Harry, thank you so much, taking a real closer look at Democratic politics and how you're seeing that shift transition. It's good to see you. Thank you.
The 2021 New York Democratic mayoral primary, the very centrist, some might say center-right candidate, Eric Adams, triumphed over the more progressive candidates, with Catherine Garcia and Maya Wiley splitting the vote in second and third place. But in this year's mayoral primary round one on Tuesday night, 33-year-old Democratic socialist Zohran Mamdani shocked the political and media establishment with a 7-point lead over the centrist candidate, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who promptly conceded the entire race. And the progressive divisions of the past were nowhere to be seen this time around. Yes, in a refreshing show of unity, Mamdani and fellow progressive candidate, New York City Controller Brad Lander, cross-endorsed each other during the race, telling their voters to at least rank the other second on their ballots. The two even made public appearances together, most notably on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, where the lefty duo praised each other's records, and where Lander, who is Jewish, even defended Muslim Mamdani against bogus accusations of anti-Semitism. And on Tuesday night, when Lander went to join Mamdani's election night party after the state lawmaker's lead became apparent and undeniable, Lander was met with warm welcome from Mamdani supporters cheering his name. The man whom they were cheering about joins me now, New York City Controller and former New York City mayoral candidate Brad Lander. Thank you for coming on Mayor the Unfiltered, Brad.
Great to be here.
It's not every day in politics that you see a rival candidate show up at the other candidate's election night party and be welcomed with people cheering that rival's name. What was that like for you on Tuesday night?
Yeah, I've been saying, like, I'm pretty sure in electoral history, no candidate polling in third at, 11% ever felt as good about election night as I have. It's made possible by ranked choice voting. So that's one point. And I, voted in that 2021 election. That's when I was elected controller. And I've been saying for the past 4 years, basically, if only Maya Wiley and Catherine Garcia had cross-endorsed each other, then one of them would have won and not Eric Adams. And we wouldn't have been stuck in this horrible timeline where he sold us out first to Turkey and then to Donald Trump. So having said that, a lot of times I felt it was incumbent on me to show it. But then something funny happened. I went into the cross endorsement thinking of it more like ranked choice math. I want to be mayor, but I really don't want Andrew Cuomo to be mayor. So I better team up. And yeah, in a ranked choice model, candidates 2 and 3 should team up if they don't want candidate 1 to win. So that's just the ranked choice math of it. But then something quite extraordinary happened in that maybe we went into it more like ranked choice math, but it wound up feeling more like solidarity. People responded to this idea that politics could be something not just like selfish and egotistical in the way that Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams practiced it, who went out of their way on election day to emphasize they had only voted for themselves.
Yes.
And people loved seeing us out there together, fighting hopefully for a better city, and then to add this dimension of trying to be able to have, Jewish New Yorkers and Muslim New Yorkers be able to hear each other a little better, added something pretty special too.
So I want to come back to the Muslim-Jewish angle in a moment, just on the cross endorsement. And by the way, for people watching at home, he is the controller. His title's spelt comptroller, but he and I are right in saying it actually is controller. On the cross endorsement, I wonder, Brad, at what point in the race did you two decide to do this quite remarkable, quite popular cross endorsement? And which of you initiated it? Who came up with the idea?
I'll say for months we had been saying something similar but a little flatter, which was rank the slate. So the Working Families Party had identified 4 candidates: Zohran, me, Adrienne Adams, and Zelnor Myrie, and we've been saying for many months, once the Working Families Party announced their endorsements, I think in, February or March, rank the 4 of us, don't rank Andrew Cuomo. So that was already out there, but it just didn't pack the same emotional resonance. It didn't, I think that felt like ranked choice math and not like a team effort at a better New York City. We only, we announced it only 2 weeks ago Friday, so just 10 days before the election. And we sat down to talk about it only 2 days before that. There's been a lot of dialogue back and forth between our campaigns. We have a lot of mutual friends. So it was a brokered effort to say, hey, maybe it's time to sit down and talk about it. But once we did, I think it was pretty clear to both of us, both that it was the right thing to do and that it would feel like a good thing to do.
Liking this video? And don't just watch, hit like, share, and subscribe. 2020 Democratic presidential primary, we saw lefty candidates Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren run into the same issue that Garcia and Wiley ran into during the last mayoral primary in New York, before yours. They split the vote. They actually fell out quite publicly on the debate stage, Sanders and Warren, if I remember correctly, back in the 2020 primaries. Had Sanders and Warren cross-endorsed each other, I know it's not the same thing, there's no ranked choice voting in that primary, but had they kind of acted like they were on the same team, to use your phrase, same goals, built a coalition together, if Warren had played the role you played in this race, would one of them be president right now? Is cross-endorsing and working together perhaps the best solution for progressives trying to break through in these crowded primaries?
I mean, it will surprise no one that I was an Elizabeth Warren supporter in 2020, and I continue to adore her. So this worked surprisingly well. I mean, and ranked choice helps a lot, so I do feel like it's worth just understanding the electoral mechanism, made it a lot easier. But yes, I guess what I would say, if the question is, should people who share values and want to build broader power for inclusive multiracial democracy try harder. Like, we play politics as an individual sport here. It's your name on the ballot. You're asking for contributions. You're having the house parties. The posters have your name on it. When we could get beyond that and remember the goal is to build teams that win for shared values, people really appreciate it. So, I've done a lot of that. Vote for me, give me money and my time. And nothing I have ever done has been so appreciated as finding my way to this partnership.
When you went on Stephen Colbert's show with your partner, Mamdani, Colbert suggested that Jewish New Yorkers as a whole would be hesitant to vote for him because they don't think he'll take the rise of anti-Semitism seriously enough. You had a great response pointing out that it's possible to disapprove of Israel's actions and also want to protect Jewish New Yorkers. I'm curious to know, Brad, what do you make of it when everyone in the media just seems to go along with this notion that whatever the pro-Israel side thinks must be what all Jewish people think, ignoring in the process that the most senior elected Jewish New York City official, you, endorsed Mamdani?
Yeah, our politics here is so broken. Just so broken. And that's been true a long time, but especially since October 7th, it is just really broken. Maybe I'll say it this way, which isn't quite yet on Israel and Palestine. The other night when Trump bombed Iran, I put up a tweet that included saying, my thoughts are with Iranian New Yorkers tonight who have loved ones in harm's way. And a ton of people reached out to me as though that was some radical statement, and we are in a terrible timeline where for some reason it's just hard to remember or hard for Jewish New Yorkers to understand that Iranian American New Yorkers love their families in Tehran just as much as we love our families in Tel Aviv. War should open you up to seeing that the people on the other side, quote unquote, of the line are just as human and love their kids as much as you do. And yet instead it has promoted a kind of trauma and fear that has weakened our empathy and divided Jewish and Muslim New Yorkers from each other in an exceedingly unhelpful way. And then, yes, of course, then you're in the middle of an electoral campaign and the media is on it over and over again. But yeah, I don't agree. I don't agree with myself on the Middle East every day. I sure don't agree, 100% with Zohran on how to approach the very challenging dynamics of Israel and Palestine. But I know for sure he wants every Jewish New Yorker to feel safe in their city. And that includes those of us who consider ourselves in some ways supporters of the vision of Israel as a Jewish and democratic state. And, I pray in a synagogue that has some folks who think of themselves as Zionists and some folks who think of themselves as anti-Zionists. So maybe that makes it a little easier for me to say that is not the fundamental line on which do you care about the safety of Jews should be focused. And maybe it's just a little easier for me to find a way to say, you're going to disagree with him, some of you, on his point of view on Israel. But if he's mayor, he will take it as a very serious role that you be safe and pray and thrive. And that's a pretty low bar, sadly, for our politics.
Yes.
But I'm glad it's resonating.
Talking of low bars, as I'm sure you're aware, right-wingers are having an absolutely unhinged response to learning that the next mayor of New York may be a Muslim. Elise Stefanik, Republican congresswoman, called him a jihadist. Laura Loomer, conspiracy theorist but close ally to the president, said there'll now be another 9/11. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene posted a picture of the Statue of Liberty with what seemed to be a burqa on it. What is your reaction to such blatant but also normalized Islamophobia?
Yeah. Whatever, with President, with Donald Trump, using Palestinian as a slur for Chuck Schumer in his tweet about Zohran, and people just have to wake up to it. I understand why Jews feel anxious right now in the wake of DC and Boulder, but we have a responsibility to stand up against Islamophobia and see what's happened and call it out, and not just say, no, Chuck Schumer is not a Palestinian and Donald Trump doesn't get to decide who's Jewish, but also using Palestinian as a slur is racist.
Yes.
And we're going to stand for it. And, To me, when we say, some version of like the safety and thriving and liberation of Jews and Muslims is bound up together, it is just patently true. And it's true in Israel and Palestine, and it's true in New York City, and right wingers are coming. Jews should not believe them. Andrew Cuomo went into a synagogue in this race and called me and Zohran and the black speaker of the city council anti-Semitic. They are happy to use us as pawns for their own political purposes.
Well said.
Don't fall for it.
Trump also, in that post you mentioned where he talked about Chuck Schumer being Palestinian, he called Mamdani 100% communist lunatic, which is measured language from Trump as ever. Do you see Trump trying to interfere with the general election to try and stop Mamdani winning? Because you've got Eric Adams, of course, cozying up to Trump.
Well, and he just sent the National Guard into Los Angeles. So, if the question is, am I worried about what the federal government is doing? I'm worried about it every day. This is my 5th time back in immigration court. What's happening there is an emergency. I got, arrested and detained for trying to stand up for those rights. And Trump is happy to use the National Guard to try, in Pam Bondi's words, to, quote, liberate democratic cities from their duly elected officials. So I am worried. At the same time, I can't imagine a better identity with which to stand up to Donald Trump than New Yorker. And the opportunity we have in this general election to rally around Zohran and build a coalition of New Yorkers who understand what inclusive multiracial democracy could look like and do it with the joy that was in his campaign and our cross endorsement, I think is a great opportunity for how to stand up to fascism.
You mentioned the arrest by ICE agents of yourself, violently arrested on camera at an immigration courthouse in Manhattan. You were trying to escort an immigrant. They were trying to detain that day. You were asking for a warrant. A man you say didn't even have a lawyer. How alarming was that for you to see ICE officials arrest you, detain you? If they can do that to you, to borrow a line, what are they doing to people we don't see on camera who aren't elected officials?
Yeah, here I would just urge members of the public are welcome to go sit in these immigration courtrooms, wherever you are, if they have them. It is a banana republic. People are stripped of due process. Last week, the government was moving to, quote unquote, dismiss people's cases, deportation cases, and therefore strip them of their status as asylum seekers and make them subject to expedited removal. Today, they weren't even bothering with that. I just literally not an hour ago watched a number of people be grabbed and disappeared by ICE agents who have active asylum cases. The judge had literally just said, thank you for filing your asylum application. There's a hearing I'm scheduling for February of 2027. Come back. And there's 2 brothers from Colombia who were explaining their father had been assassinated, and they think they're going to get the chance to come back and present their credible fear. And then they walk out in the hallway and masked, non-uniformed ICE agents grab them and deport them. There is an emergency happening in our immigration court system right now. And yes, the fact that included arresting and detaining me, only for 4 hours relative to these folks who are going to be deported back to a country where they're pretty sure they'll be killed, is terrifying. It's like they want,
So let me ask you a question I'm now asking every elected Democrat who comes on this show. Given ICE is behaving like a lawless, fascistic arm of the federal government, or even a private militia of Donald Trump and Stephen Miller, isn't it time for Democrats to go back to calling for the abolition of ICE?
Yes. I'm happy to say abolish ICE. I hope other people will say it too. I guess also I want more than that. I would like every elected official to be in these immigration courtrooms and see what's happening and try to ask for warrants in the way that I did. We have to do more here. It's hard to know when you've got creeping authoritarianism where the lines are. But I'm telling you, we are way over them here. And a lot more action is needed.
How do you believe the future New York City mayor, if it is Zohran Mamdani, should handle ICE?
Well, we've got great sanctuary city laws in New York City that I was proud to be a co-sponsor of when I was in the city council. So we don't allow ICE in our schools or public hospitals or shelters or jails, even though Eric Adams is trying to put them there. And then we could go one step further. I mean, let's remember, for New York City, 40% of New Yorkers are foreign-born. 50% live in mixed-status households, including 1 million children. Like, this is just the future of New York City that we're talking about. So our parent coordinators in our public schools and like the social workers in our public hospitals should have information and be able to connect people to the legal resources they need. The gentleman Edgardo that I was, walking out with, I was proud to be there with him, but it would have been a lot better if instead we had a lawyer there with him. So let's expand legal services and access so that we can do our best to protect New Yorkers.
You said, just pivoting a little bit, you said good fucking riddance on Tuesday night after former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo lost to Mamdani. But he hasn't fully ruled out running as an independent yet. He's kind of suggesting he may not run. Do you worry that he will stay in the race for the general election? Could that make it much more difficult for Mamdani to win?
I mean, it's one thing I just want to say is, billionaires just lit $20 million on fire trying to defeat Zohran and support, a person all of them know is a corrupt, abusive asshole. It's embarrassing that they did it, but they spent all that money and all it did was Zohran's numbers went up in the polls. Some people are panicked right now and trying to figure out whether they should back Cuomo or back Eric Adams. Apparently, Eric Adams launched his re-election campaign today, and some people are trying to choose him. I feel I take November seriously, and I will be working hard to make sure that Zohran wins. I don't know whether it's better just to have Eric Adams in the race or to have Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo in the race. Either way, they are both so unfit to be mayor, and I just feel like anyone that would spend millions of dollars on them, I should be embarrassed.
On Eric Adams, by the way, he's running as an independent, but he was on Fox trying to get support. He sucked up to Trump. He's called Mamdani a snake oil salesman. What does that say about your party, though, in New York, the New York Democratic Party, that this guy was your mayoral candidate a few years ago and was your mayor as a Democrat until 2 minutes ago? What does that say about your party?
Yeah, I mean, the Democratic Party has some things to work out. I mean, and look, I don't generally curse in public, so good fucking riddance is, to me, I don't have moderates. I don't mind moderates. I was an Elizabeth Warren supporter when she dropped out. I endorsed Bernie. When he dropped out, I endorsed Biden. I can support moderates in certain races, but just corrupt, venal, abusive individuals are bad to make our standard bearers. And I don't, it's a bad time in which Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo are the New York Democratic standard bearers. But the nice thing is that is part of why there's so much hopeful energy around Zohran. People are tired of the corrupt past and excited about a hopeful future.
In terms of the future, last question from me, will you be getting a job in a future Mamdani administration? Was that part of the cross endorsement? Will we see Deputy Mayor Brad Lander?
I needed a little time to process this these past few weeks. But look, Zohran has a big mandate for change. He's going to need a lot of hands to help make it happen, and I would be honored to help in any way I can.
Brad Lander, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Epic battle. New York Mayor Eric Adams formally announcing tonight that he's going to go head-to-head with the Democrats' new rising star, Zohran Mamdani, as an independent candidate in the mayor's race in the biggest city in America. Now, we're going to speak to Mamdani live in just a moment. But first, take a listen to Mayor Adams' attacks right out of the gate today.
This election is a choice between a candidate with a blue collar and one with a silver spoon. A choice between dirty fingernails and manicured nails. This is not a city where you use idealism to state you're giving everything to everyone for free. There's no dignity in someone giving you everything for free. There's dignity in giving you a job so you can provide for your family and the opportunities that you deserve. So this is not a city of handouts. This is a city of hands up.
Adams taking direct aim at the core of Mamdani's campaign. Mamdani has made economics the heart of it, right? Things like freezing rent on nearly half of the city's apartments, free bus service, free childcare for children under 5, and city-run grocery stores. Okay, well, the Adams news comes as our Isaac Dover is just reporting that former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who, of course, was crushed in that primary, who conceded it to Mamdani, will not drop out of the race before tomorrow's deadline. So now this raises crucial questions about whether he will also be running in the general election as an independent. But Mamdani's likely and seismic win over Cuomo in the primary is generating national headlines about him being a new political star, creating a movement. And from the left-leaning Nation magazine, they write the Democratic Party establishment should follow Zohran Mamdani's example. Out front now, New York State Assemblyman and presumptive Democratic nominee for mayor of New York, Zohran Mamdani. And so much appreciate your time. A whirlwind week for you, I think, to put it lightly. Okay, so, everyone else is putting their view on this, of what this means, okay? Your victory. What do you think it means?
I think it means that we are ready in the most expensive city in the United States to have 5 boroughs that New Yorkers can actually afford. And this entire race was about the question of affordability. And ultimately, I have run a campaign that speaks about the tools that city government actually has to deliver that affordability in the wealthiest city in the wealthiest country in the world. And it's time that we have a mayoral administration that follows through and actually delivers that.
All right, so I want to talk about some of that, but first the breaking news. Isaac Dover is reporting that Andrew Cuomo is not dropping out of the general election race, right? And it's kind of a willery-woney, but the deadline's tomorrow. Is this a surprise to you?
Ultimately, Andrew's decision or my decision matters less than the decision that voters already took on Tuesday night, where we won from Bay Ridge to Dyker Heights to Harlem to Washington Heights. We saw a mandate delivered for a new generation of leadership. And I am so proud and excited to continue to build on that mandate with an ever-expanding coalition, one that has now included the endorsements of Congressman Jerry Nadler, of State Senator Brad Hoylman-Siegel, and Manhattan Borough President, soon-to-be Controller, Mark Levine. And ultimately, that is a coalition that will continue to expand through November.
Right, so you're saying no matter what, I mean, if Andrew Cuomo's in, it's not like a redo where you're worried?
No, not at all. I mean, we did it once, and it turned out pretty well.
All right, so now can we talk about the policy? The policy is what stood out to a lot of people. But right, I said the freezing rents on half of the apartments, free bus service, the free childcare, and the city-run grocery stores. How do you pay for that?
Let's go through it. So for the first thing, freezing the rent, that's not something that requires any fiscal output from the city. It's something that's determined by the Rent Guidelines Board, composed of 9 members. The mayor picks each of those members. They determine each year whether rents rise or whether they stay the same. The previous mayoral administration froze the rent 3 times, so this has clear historical precedent. When it comes to city-run grocery...
Even Adams, you're saying Adams.
No, this is prior
to
Adams. He's the current one who has raised it 9% on those same New Yorkers, pushing them out of their homes. City-run grocery stores, I've proposed a pilot program of 1 store in each borough. These are 5 stores in total. The total cost of this is $60 million. This is less than half the cost of what the city is already set to spend on a subsidy program for corporate supermarkets that has no guarantee of cheaper prices or collective bargaining agreements or even accepting SNAP or WIC.
So you're not looking at some like Soviet Union grocery stores on every corner that are going to be run by the government?
No, what I'm looking at is how to solve the very clear twin crises of affordability when you go to the grocery store and food deserts, which disproportionately impact Black and brown New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs, where I've heard directly from New Yorkers who say, why is it that I can find 6 fast food restaurants in a 5-block radius, but I can't find a place to buy groceries?
But five boroughs, 5 grocery stores, but that can't be the goal.
Well, I mean, the idea
is the goal you want them on every. No. But in New York, things do go. There's a nail salon on every corner. There's a grocery store on almost every other corner.
I think ultimately I'm guided by outcomes. If this pilot succeeds in guaranteeing cheaper groceries, as I think it will be, then yes, it should scale up. If it doesn't succeed, then no, it shouldn't, because what New Yorkers want are results. And then it comes to making buses free and universal childcare.
Right.
These are things that cost around $700 million and let's say about $5 or $6 billion. Significant amounts of money.
Huge amounts of money.
But have to be understood in the context of a $113 billion municipal budget, a $252 billion state budget, and we put forward a plan to pay for these and more to start Trump-proofing our city through 2 major revenue streams. Increasing the top corporate tax rate of New York to match that of New Jersey, that raises $5 billion, and increasing income taxes on the top 1% of New Yorkers who make $1 million or more a year by 2%. Both of these things, after they come to fruition, you're still paying less than you did before Trump.
Okay. On the city tax, though, and I know that takes effect with people right now, that top rate of people of 50,000 or more. So if you're going to be adding 2% to people at $1 million, that I just did the math, right? Well, but that's going to be an increase of 51% of what they pay now. I'm not saying cry for them. I'm saying if they leave, you're not going to get that money. And when you increase someone's taxes by 51%, aren't a lot of people going to leave?
We're saying we're increasing it by 2% of what it is right now. And ultimately, I'm guided by the facts. The Fiscal Policy Institute did an analysis of the top 1% of New Yorkers and found that they leave the city at 1/4 the rate of other income categories. And when they leave to what are called high tax states, New Jersey, California. So what it then comes down to is, why are they leaving? Is it fiscal policy or is it actually quality of life? And I've heard that time and again from wealthier New Yorkers, from all New Yorkers.
So it's talk. They're going to go to Florida and all you think is talk.
In 2021, when I came to the state assembly, we had the same fight to fund public schools, to raise taxes on billionaires and corporations. We were told millionaires would flee.
Yep.
And we now have more millionaires.
Okay, so the New York Times is saying that Mayor Adams is trying to gather business leaders to support him, to say this is going to be bad. And Bill Ackman, billionaire hedge fund manager, of course you know of him, New Yorker, he said he agrees with you that the city's broken, okay, but he has a real problem with your economic policies. He said the ability for New York City to offer services for the poor and needy, let alone the average New Yorker, is entirely dependent on New York City being a business-friendly environment and a place where wealthy residents are willing to spend 183 days, the amount you need to be taxed, and assume the associated tax burden. Unfortunately, both have already started making arrangements for the exits. So you just think that that isn't going to add up. And by the way, that corporate tax rate that you're talking about, that's a big increase.
That's matching 7.25% going to 11.5%. And the point of it is that if it works for our regional neighbor, why can't it work for us? And with Bill Ackman, this is someone who put $500,000 into Andrew Cuomo's super PAC, someone to whom clearly money is not an issue. And ultimately, even for him, life would get better. Because what I'm looking to use this money for is to make the quality of life across the city better.
Okay, so when people say democratic socialist, right? And I'm curious what you think this means. I mean, do you like capitalism?
No, I have many critiques of capitalism. And I think ultimately the definition for me of why I call myself a democratic socialist is the words of Dr. King decades ago. He said, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism, there must be a better distribution of wealth for all of God's children in this country. And that's what I'm focused on, is dignity and taking on income inequality. And for too long, politicians have pretended that we're spectators to that crisis of affordability. We're actually actors, and we have the choice to exacerbate it, like Mayor Adams has done, or to respond to it and resolve it, like I'm planning to do.
Okay. So, for people who say that America was built on, and a lot of immigrants, and obviously you speak from an immigrant experience. I mean, you came as a young child, but you speak to a lot of people who came much more recently, that they come to America because they believe in capitalism. They believe that if they work hard and make a lot of money, that's part of the American dream. Do you think that's not part of the American dream?
I think the dream at its core is a dream for stability in one's life. And what you're saying, that you work hard enough and that you then reap the benefits, too many New Yorkers, and Americans for that matter, are working 8 hours and then still feeling like they haven't made enough money to keep living in the city they call home. And ultimately, what I'm focused on is making the city affordable for everyone, not to win an ideological argument, but to deliver on the mandate of this
So when Mayor
campaign.
Adams, you just heard him come out and he said, soup, silver spoon. He talked about manicured nails to refer to you, right? I was looking at him. You can show him to everybody. What do you say to him?
I understand what he's doing. He's trying to distract from his own record. His is a record where he raised rents on more than 2 million New Yorkers by 9%, and he's considering another 8% increase. His is a record of raising the water bill to the highest it's been in 13 years, supporting Con Edison when they wanted to increase New Yorkers' gas and electric bills by $65 a month. I would much rather talk about me than I would about his record if I was him. And so that's what he's going to be doing over the next few months. And we will continue to remind New Yorkers what's on the ballot. It's affordability.
I just want to play, because that's what this is, play more of Mamdani telling his story.
So to quote the words of a famous New Yorker, allow me to reintroduce myself. I was born in Kampala, Uganda, in East Africa. I was given my middle name Kwame by my father, who named me after the first prime minister of Ghana.
I moved to this city when I was 7. This is the city I fell in love with, the city where I got my citizenship.
He's been in the New York Assembly for 4 years. And before that, he was an aspiring rapper under the name Mr. Cardamom. Listen. Once you do it, it's out there. It never comes back. It's there.
Didn't think it was going to be on CNN.
It's there, and there it is. So what do you say to people who look at your background and they wonder? They say, okay, rising star you may be, but this is the largest city in America, $112 billion budget, 8 million people, and a hell of a lot of problems. And they say, okay, whatever the future may be, you're not ready now.
I would say that a campaign offers a glimpse of what an administration would look like. And we built a campaign the likes of which the city has not seen in a long time. We started with 2 full-time employees and now are managing 50,000 volunteers. At the beginning of this race, there were questions of whether we'd get 50,000 votes. And yet we had 50,000
volunteers.
50,000 volunteers who knocked on 1.5 million doors, made 2.1 million phone calls. And ultimately, it's a story of not only being able to inspire people, but absorb that inspiration and build an organization. And I think that's also the story of what it means to run a city, that you are ultimately responsible, but you're also determined by hiring the best and the brightest. And that's what I will be doing in City Hall. I'll be hiring those that have a clear track record of excellence, of results, that come from a wide variety of mayoral administrations, and finally bring public excellence back into the public sector.
All right, so you caught a lot of attention for confronting Tom Homan, Trump's border czar, about the deportation policies, which have a lot of impact here in New York. Here you are.
Do you believe in the First Amendment? Do you believe in the First Amendment, Tom Homan?
So that moment went viral. All right. Then after the primary, Homan was asked about your plan, which is on your website. You said that you would end the city's cooperation with ICE agents that has been going on under Mayor Adams. And he has spoken out. Here's what he said.
Good luck with that. Federal law trumps him every day, every hour of every minute. We're going to be in New York City. Game on. We're coming.
Game on. He's coming. What do you say?
That I'm going to be here to stand up and fight back. And unlike the current mayor, I'm not going to be working alongside the Trump administration to build the single largest deportation force in American history. I'm going to actually represent each and every New Yorker. And that includes immigrant New Yorkers. And that means standing up for the laws of this city, like our sanctuary city policies, which have kept New Yorkers safe for decades and were defended by Republicans and Democrats alike for years until we got this mayor who fear-mongered about them so extensively.
Does that involve the NYPD?
It means that the NYPD would actually serve New Yorkers and not assist ICE in their operations. We recently saw ICE agents
So they would not assist ICE?
Not assisting ICE, because ultimately their job is public safety. And I know officers who are signing up to take on serious crimes, not to be a part of the force that is arresting a pastor who's peacefully observing the arrest of a migrant at Federal Plaza.
All right, so a moment ago, you talked about how you didn't know if you'd get 50,000 votes, and you ended up with 50,000 volunteers. They knocked on doors. There are many in the country who might look at that and say, okay, that makes me think of somebody else who took on I'm trying to think of the right word to use, but somebody who expected to win and therefore didn't campaign that hard and lost. And the person who did that was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, right? Famously also here in New York. She endorsed you early. She helped you. She just spoke to Manu Raju, our Manu Raju, a few moments ago. She said the Democratic Party needs to pay attention to your success right now. Here's what she just told him.
We have a choice to listen to that message that people are sending us or not. This isn't just about Mr. Mamdani as an individual. This is about the message that the people of New York City are trying to send to our party.
So there's now talk, that your victory puts her in a whole new light, right? It puts her and Bernie Sanders, not that they were seen as fringe, but they were seen as a wing of the party. And that instead of being a wing, that becomes more of the center, and that you are part of that. Do you see it that way? And do you see those who say, look, your victory propels her to a presidential run in 2028?
She's been an inspiration, and it's been an honor to be represented by her as an assembly member in Astoria for many years. And I think about a senior who works at a child care center that I met in Sunnyside, Queens, who told me that I'm not a progressive, but I realized when I looked at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders, they were the only ones who were willing to fight for me. Yeah. And that's what so many New Yorkers and Americans understand, is that these are the two individuals who have been willing to take on this oligarchy and actually stand up for dignity for Americans.
Before you go, one last thing. Bill Ackman, I just mentioned him as right, he's the billionaire hedge fund manager, but he's not alone. There are a lot like him, whether it's Ken Griffin or CEOs of big banks. Would you meet with them?
I'll meet with anyone. I will meet with them and I'll explain why I believe in the necessity of raising the top corporate tax rate. And I'll also tell Bill Ackman that I firmly disagree with his attempt to dismantle diversity, equity, and inclusion across the country, because it's not only against the morals of so many, it's also against the actual bottom line for so many businesses. And as a businessman, he should understand that.
All right. Well, Assemblyman, thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
These dark times, I know that it is harder than ever to keep faith in our democracy. It has been attacked by billionaires and their big spending, by elected officials who care more about self-enrichment than the public trust, and by authoritarian leaders who rule through fear. But above all, our democracy has been attacked from within. For too long, New Yorkers have strained to find a leader who represents us, who puts us first. And we have been betrayed time and again. After so many disappointments, the heart hardens, belief becomes elusive. And when we no longer believe in our democracy, it only becomes easier for people like Donald Trump to convince us of his worth. For billionaires to convince us that they must always lead.
Going to send Andrew Cuomo back to the suburbs.
Zohran Mamdani built a following with viral videos pitching himself as an unapologetic progressive in his campaign to be the next Democratic mayor of New York City. He says his campaign has drawn 40,000 volunteers and knocked on 1 million doors. But will that translate into votes?
Let's win this thing.
Tuesday's primary is a test of the Democratic Party's direction following President Donald Trump's victory last November. The party is divided between the older centrist establishment, like former Governor Andrew Cuomo, and younger progressives, like Mamdani, a state assemblyman and a self-described democratic socialist.
The name is Mamdani, M-A-M-D-A-N-I. You should learn how to say it.
He has zero accomplishments.
I want to be very
And now
clear.
he thinks he's going to be ready to be mayor of the city of New York. It is laughable. It is laughable, and it is dangerous.
I think Andrew Cuomo is the perfect representation of the politics of the past, of leadership within our own party that helped give rise to Donald Trump and the affordability crisis. And ultimately, New York City is under attack from both of those things.
If elected, Mamdani would be the city's first Muslim mayor. His campaign has resonated with younger New Yorkers.
I'm supporting Zohran because I'm sick of the status quo, and New York has always been historically resistant to change, and we need change.
I think Cuomo doesn't know how much a dozen eggs costs. And I think that's indicative of him as a candidate, and I think Zohran probably does know what a dozen eggs costs.
Do you think the National Democratic Party is attuned to what eggs cost and the idea?
No. Senators make over $100,000 a year, and I don't know how I'm going to make rent next month. So there's an entire ocean between most of the Democrats in the Senate and me.
Do you think Democrats over 80 in Congress should retire?
I think it's time for a new generation of leadership.
It's been 15 years since Jimmy McMillan captured the city's attention with the campaign slogan, "The rent is too damn high."
Rent is too damn high.
The rent has only gotten higher since. Last year, the vacancy rate was just 1.4%, and the city says average housing costs rose 68% from 2011 to 2022. In addition to a rent freeze, Mamdani says he wants to make it easier to build new housing. How fast can you actually have buildings built? This is one of the critiques of the Biden administration. They had all these great plans for infrastructure and development, but they still haven't broken ground.
We should eliminate parking requirements in general for new construction. I think we should increase density around mass transit hubs. We should upzone wealthier neighborhoods that have historically not contributed to affordable housing production. But to your point, a lot of this also has to do with the processes underpinning that. But these are also the kinds of policy decisions that decide whether or not construction can actually take place, that untangle why Tokyo builds 10 homes per 1,000 people, Jersey City 7, New York City barely 4.
Most voters we spoke to talked about housing, transportation, and fighting back against Trump as their top issues.
I'm very nervous letting somebody who's 31 years old, or 33, who's really passed 3 bills and has never really had a job, in charge of the city. So, yes, I am voting for Cuomo, and I know he comes with a lot of baggage, but I think we're going to have to fight against Trump.
Andrew Cuomo.
How come?
He's got the experience, having been in politics for many, many years. He's been governor. I think he's very focused on the issues of the city. We've got so many people in Congress that are over the age of 80. I think it's important that we bring younger people up the ranks, but I think at this current time, I think he's the right choice for mayor.
Just yes or no, do you believe in a Jewish state of Israel?
I believe Israel has the right to exist.
Not as a Jewish state?
No, as a state with equal rights.
But some voters we spoke to said Israel was their top issue. Mamdani has called Israel's actions in Gaza a genocide, while Cuomo has blamed critics of Israel for a rise in anti-Semitic attacks. So who are you voting for in the mayor's race?
Cuomo.
Why?
Zohran Mamdani, I feel, is anti-Semitic. He's a threat to the Jewish people in the state of Israel that cannot be abided in New York City with its major Jewish population.
When you talk to voters, if they bring up the war in Gaza, what do they actually say? Like, do you have specifics?
You know, I have heard from many a real despair around what's been happening in Gaza over the last 18 months and beyond that. And a despair that has been echoed by many beyond those who we typically think of as being the faces of rightful critique. And I was at a synagogue some months ago in the campaign where an older Jewish woman came up to me and whispered in my ear, I disagree with you on one position. I'm pretty sure you know which one it is, but I agree with you on the others, and I'm going to be ranking you. And I think that to me also showcases how we're able to move forward is by being honest about our own positions, our own assessments, and also being able to speak to those who don't disagree with us without becoming disagreeable.
Progressive candidates tend to perform well among college-educated white voters. But Mamdani is also trying to gain support where Cuomo has shown strength, among working-class Black New Yorkers. I'm just wondering, is there, like, within the DSA or lefty politics in general, is there kind of like a dilettante problem, that there are so many sort of trust fund babies who talk about socialists, but they're not able to connect to the actual working class because they're so remote from that experience?
I think the most important thing in our politics is to be honest. And I think some of what you're saying is also an unwillingness to recognize one's own role or one's own position. I don't think there is any one single ideology that is in the majority across our city, be it a progressive or anything else. But there is a majority of New Yorkers who feel left behind by the economic policies of this mayoral administration, of politics today.
Back in the States, however, a war of words has broken out between Trump and AOC. He went on a late-night social media rant calling her one of the dumbest people in Congress. He claims she's not qualified for office, and he demanded that she take the cognitive test that he swears he aced. Now, AOC responded on Instagram Live, so let's take a look at her response.
Apparently, Trump woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning, and he decided that he wanted to pick a fight with me. Little old me. And he's going to lose that. So maybe don't send our country into war when the vast majority of Americans, Republican, Democrat, and Independent, don't want us randomly bombing countries because you're in some type of mood.
So, you know, my experience with him and my observation of him is he really doesn't really like strong women.
Right.
He likes dutiful, obedient women who compliment him, I find. Even back in the day when I used to do jokes about his hair, you know, but every male comedian did jokes about his hair, but he went after me in particular.
And Rosie.
Who?
And Rosie O'Donnell.
Oh, Rosie, yeah. He went bananas on Rosie. Yeah. So he's not going to like her. He's somehow this type of woman really gets in his kishkas,
Well, he
you know?
projects, too, also, right? He's calling her dumb and unqualified.
Yes. Well,
Come on.
Well, yeah, I mean, but my question here is, are young Democrats like AOC finding the voice that's connecting with people? What do you think?
I think absolutely. You know, I've been saying, you know, people are talking about a resistance, and I think that's a very inactive position. I think you need to be an opposition party at this point in this country. And so I think Democrats are finding their way with these younger voices. We saw it in New York for the new mayor who calls himself a Democratic socialist. You know, he's very progressive. Wow. And he ran on issues that I think Republicans were owning before. He ran on cost of living issues. He zeroed in on essentials such as housing in New York, transportation, free buses in New York, childcare, groceries. Those are things that people are really caring about. Also in the House, we've got the youngest person, I think, am I right?
Maxwell.
Garcia.
Oh, as the chairman of Oversight.
As the chairman of the Oversight Committee. So that also shows that that we're seeing, I think, this sort of new generation of leaders that are unafraid and they're on the offense as opposed to sort of being on the resistance.
No, it's not always, because a lot of the thoughts they're bringing up are Bernie Sanders ideas, and this is so the number one thing.
He's young at heart, though.
He might be young at heart, but I think it's less about it might be less about the age and more about the issues they're speaking of, because right now the cost of living in the U.S. has risen by nearly 24% since early 2020. 24% in 5 years, and only 40% of Americans earn enough to afford a minimal quality of life. Almost half of this country can't even have the minimal amount. So I think when you speak to how you're going to help with housing like this man did, and he also said he's going to do something that is so brilliant. He's going to tax the billionaires. He actually said he wants to raise the corporate tax